Imagine making a small purchase that feels insignificant in the moment, something routine, almost invisible in your daily life, and then repeating that decision again and again without much thought because each individual cost seems too small to matter. Yet over time, these minor expenses begin to accumulate in a way that is not immediately obvious, gradually shaping your financial position without ever demanding your full attention. This is the quiet dynamic behind why small expenses feel harmless but often are not. And understanding it requires looking beyond individual transactions and into how repetition interacts with time. At the surface level, small expenses are easy to justify because they fall below the threshold of concern, where the brain categorizes them as negligible, making them less likely to be tracked or evaluated carefully. This creates a blind spot in financial awareness, where attention is reserved for larger purchases, while smaller ones pass through without resistance, even though their frequency can make them just as impactful over longer periods. The mathematics behind this effect is simple but often overlooked, because the total cost of repeated small expenses is equal to the cost per instance multiplied by how often it occurs, and when frequency is high, even low-cost items can scale into significant amounts. What makes this dynamic powerful is not the size of any single expense, but the consistency with which it is repeated, turning what appears trivial into something structurally meaningful. From a behavioral perspective, this pattern is reinforced by convenience and habit, where repeated actions become automatic, reducing the likelihood of reevaluation. Over time, these habits form part of a routine that feels normal, making it harder to recognize their cumulative effect, especially when the financial impact is distributed across many small decisions rather than concentrated in one place. In broader economic systems, many products and services are intentionally priced within this low-resistance range, where they are unlikely to trigger hesitation, allowing them to be purchased frequently without significant deliberation. This creates an environment where small, consistent spending becomes a reliable pattern, not because of necessity, but because of how it interacts with human perception. As this continues, the long-term effect becomes clearer, because money that could have been accumulated or redirected is gradually dispersed, reducing the potential for savings or investment without creating a noticeable sense of loss. This is why individuals can feel financially constrained despite not making any large or obvious spending mistakes. The shift begins with recognizing that financial outcomes are not only shaped by major decisions, but by repeated minor ones, and that controlling frequency can be just as important as controlling size. This does not require eliminating all small expenses, but rather understanding their role within the larger system and making them more visible in the decision-making process. Over time, even slight adjustments to recurring spending patterns can create measurable differences, not because any single change is dramatic, but because consistency works in both directions, either building or reducing financial capacity depending on how it is applied. By the time this becomes fully visible, it often appears as if money has simply disappeared without explanation, when in reality it has been gradually redistributed through a series of small, consistent decisions. Understanding this dynamic is not about restriction, but about awareness, and how small actions, when repeated over time, can quietly shape larger financial outcomes.